Well, hey there, and welcome to Unmistakably You. I'm Amy. I'm a wedding planner and educator here in London. And welcome to our regular Wednesday night chat. I normally pop in here on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. I missed you last week because I was directing a production that was running, but it is over. I feel like I have, 5 seconds in my day to breathe, but we always fill that up with other things. So busy, which is why tonight I'm actually also not live. I do usually go live at 8, but right now I'm actually at a concert that my husband is playing. So as always, if you are joining me, welcome. If you're newly engaged, congratulations. If you've been with us for a while, thank you as always for ensuring that I'm not just kind of talking into nowhere. And if you're, as always, coming up with any questions or if you have any comments, I would love to hear them. If you're joining us on Facebook, post them in the comments. If you're hitting us up on YouTube, of course, post a comment as well. Or you can always feel free to send me a private message or an email. My email is amy@unmistakably.you.com. Always happy to hear how your wedding planning is going. And if there's anything at all that you need help with, we are here. Today, I would like to chat about the role of an MC. For the next month, we are going to tackle kind of the role of civilians, if you will, in your wedding. We've gone through in the past, and if you go back in our archives, you'll be able to see lots of interviews with other vendor colleagues of ours. We've talked about all kinds of things involving flowers and decor and officiants. And so we have lots of archives of information about roles of vendors, but we haven't ever really talked about the role of the friends and family that are going to play a big part on your special day. So today we'd like to chat about the role of an MC. And that can vary dramatically depending, of course, on the complexion of your actual wedding. And that's one of the things we like about weddings is that every wedding is different and you are going to, of course, take a different approach than anyone else. But if you do choose to have an MC, this is definitely something that I would put some time and some preparation into beforehand instead of just kind of saying, hey there, my funny friend who likes to drink and have a good time. Do you want to MC my wedding? And then not giving them any prep or any information behind the scenes. It's kind of a recipe for disaster, if you ask me. And trust me, I've seen some disasters. So I wanted to talk today just about kind of the generic roles of an MC, how to choose an MC, and how to prepare them beforehand. So to hop right in, the role of an MC, of course, varies. If you are having a wedding planner or a coordinator, it's going to look a little bit different for the MC, just in terms of who's in charge. Anytime we work a wedding, we are always cognizant of the fact that the MC is a friend and a guest as well, or a family member and a guest, and that we don't want them to be worrying about keeping things on time and on track and not enjoying their evening. So we always touch base with that MC and let them know that we'll give them the cues. We're watching for things like catering service times and making sure that VIPs are in the room before we start anything. And so we always give the cue to the MC when we're on site before they do anything. Now, if there is no coordinator or no planner, your MC will have to take on a larger role in terms of cueing the events of the evening. And oftentimes that'll happen in conjunction with the photographer or videographer team, as well as the DJ or the band leader, because they are also heavily involved in orchestrating the timing of the events of the reception. So we want to make sure that we're always communicating with them, especially if there is no planner on site. The role of an MC in a traditional wedding is kind of like crowd control, managing what comes next, and also some flow of the reception. So generally speaking, if you're doing a pretty traditional event where you've had a cocktail hour and perhaps you're moving into a different space for reception, the MC might need to cue that. They might need to indicate to guests that it's time to move over. Then sometimes there's a wedding party introduction. If you're doing a traditional entrance into your hall, the MC will oftentimes manage that. There are usually some housekeeping announcements that need to be made on behalf of the venue or on behalf of you in terms of the way that you are actually running your reception. Then there are usually some post-dinner things that need to happen, or during dinner, depending on when you've scheduled your speeches. Typically, your MC will cue the speeches, introduce the people coming up to speak, and then the same thing for the first dances if you're doing traditional, first dance and then any kind of parent dances. Now, of course, that can vary widely based on your itinerary, but those are the kinds of things that MCs typically end up doing. And there are a lot of behind the scenes moving pieces that need to play into that. So if there is no coordinator, you'll need to be really clear with your MC about when to cue things like that. So you'll want to make sure that speeches don't get started when half of your guests are outside smoking or in the washroom. You'll want to make sure that your MC has eyes on your parents and your wedding party. You don't want to start a speech if the wedding party is not all seated at the head table or if dad's in the bathroom. You also want to make sure that you communicate with the caterers in terms of serving and clearing courses and when it works for them for you to cue speeches. So again, when we're on site, those are the kinds of things that we're managing behind the scenes. But if there is no planner, you'll need to make sure that you are clear with your MC about the timing of each of those events and who needs to be where and when. Now, if you're having a non-traditional wedding, if you're doing a cocktail style or something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, those parts obviously will vary. And in some cases, you may not even need an MC. If you're having a very small, intimate wedding, if you're not doing any speeches beyond perhaps just the couple's thank you to their guests, if everything's happening in one space, if there's no formal dance, you may not need an MC, but your guests will still need some direction. So whether that direction comes from perhaps your MC, or sorry, your DJ rather, who might be moving guests from one space to another, or perhaps just the two of you are giving a speech and then you give the remaining instructions to your guests at the end of your speech in terms of what comes next. Sometimes you don't need an MC, but in a lot of cases, in fact, I would say in all cases, you do need someone or some way to direct your guests as to what comes next, or else you'll often find that they are confused, and confused guests aren't happy guests. The second thing I wanted to touch base about is who to choose for your MC. First and foremost, you'll want to choose someone who's detail-oriented and who's organized because they're in charge of the flow of your reception. And if they are not paying attention or if they don't understand the reasons that you've asked them to do what they're doing, you run the risk of things derailing pretty quickly. You'll want to choose someone who's comfortable speaking. I've often heard that the two biggest fears across all humans are snakes and public speaking, and I can definitely attest to the former. So if you have someone who is uncomfortable or nervous in front of a mic, they're probably not a great choice. They'll probably say they'll do it because they love you, but maybe you want to choose someone who's a little bit more outgoing, a little more comfortable. They don't have to have public speaking experience. They don't have to be a member of Toastmasters, but someone who is not going to freeze up in front of a mic. You're also going to want to choose someone who maybe fits the tone of your event. If you're lighthearted and fun, choose someone lighthearted and fun. And if you are a little bit more sort of calm and laid back, choose someone calm and laid back. What you don't want to do, though, is choose someone who is going to be wasted. I've dealt with that. I remember a wedding years ago where the co-MCs actually were married, and the kissing game that they had to explain to the guests was one of those, demonstrate a kiss and the couple will mimic it. And so the MCs got completely plastered during cocktail hour. They demonstrated a kiss for the guests. They lost their balance, fell over, landed, and I'm not even making this up, they landed on the head table, which collapsed, shattering all of the vases and candle holders. And then guess who had to clean it up? That was me. So your MCs absolutely can have a drink, they're guests, but encourage them perhaps to wait until after their official duties are over, which oftentimes is once your dance starts. Again, if you're doing a traditional sort of dinner and then dance, oftentimes the MC will sort of abdicate their duties following the start of the dance, and then your band leader or your DJ will take over from there. You also don't want to choose someone who is completely dry and unengaging. It had that situation as well. A number of years ago, I had just the most boring, quiet, it was like pulling teeth to have any kind of personality from this MC. And it's not an engaging experience for the guests if the MC doesn't have some kind of personality. So you'll want to choose someone who knows you well, ideally, who in a perfect world knows both of you and is able to just kind of smooth over those transition times and capture the tone and the vibe that you want to capture in your day. In terms of preparing your MC before the event, you'll want to share your itinerary well in advance. That, of course, implies that you have an itinerary, which you will if you're working with us or with any good wedding planner. You should have an itinerary lots of time in advance. So share that with your MC and then go over with them the specific moments that you're going to need them to speak and the purpose of their speech at that time. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out speech every time. Your MC may choose to prepare some well-written blurbs beforehand for each of those times when they'll need to introduce a speaker or introduce a dance. They may choose to just keep it simple and just introduce mom and dad to speak instead of giving a story or an anecdote or a joke beforehand. Depending on the vibe and the comfort level of your MC, they may prepare a script for the entire duration of the event, and they may have something specific to say at every possible interval, but you want to make sure they know exactly when you need them to speak and exactly what the purpose of that speech is. You'll also want to make sure, like I mentioned before, that you talk about the tone. You communicate if there are any potentially sensitive people there, like maybe grandma's going to be offended if you tell that story about that time in college. So make sure that you have those communications well in advance so that your MC can be prepared, because I'm clearly a type A human who likes to make lists, but most people will feel a lot more comfortable if they are emceeing your event, if they have the time in advance to prepare. And of course, if you have a planner or a coordinator, that's that extra insurance that you need to make sure that your MC has the ability to kick back and enjoy the reception, but still be assured that they're not going to miss a cue. As always, thank you for joining me here today, and I have a free resource for you. If you are struggling or if you are looking to prepare your MC, I have a very, very detailed guide document that I would love to share with you for free. So just shoot me an email, amy@unmistakably.you.com, and I will send that document your way. Or if you are watching us on Facebook, send me a private message and I will be happy to shoot that resource over to you. It's very thorough and comprehensive and gives your MC and you everything that you need to know in order for them to have a successful reception and for you to have a successful reception. Next week, join us as we continue our The Role of series. Next week, we're going to be talking about the role of your wedding party. So that covers everything from maid or man of honor to best man or best lady, as well as attendance on both sides. So I will see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Thanks for joining me. As always, have a great week and happy planning.